Baldur's Gate is a game that I have played for a completely normal amount of hours. If there has ever been another prime example that I don't have a life, it's this number right here. Why do you think I haven't had time to make any videos until now? I signed my soul and all of my free time away to this game. Now, I'm not one for achievement hunting, but there is something about this game that has made me want to go after honor mode. It could be that I wanted a reason as to why I keep sinking time into this when my time itself is limited, or maybe I just wanted a visual representation of my enjoyment of the game in the form of a set of shiny golden die. Whatever the reason may be, I have decided to try my hand at honor mode. Now, I started a stream run, but my time limitations with my work schedule meant that I'm not able to stream very often outside of weekends where I'm not doing other required life activities. So I started a second run, and over the weeks I've been able to chip away session by session to tackle this challenge. While I didn't stream it, I of course had to capture it so I could indulge in one of my other pastimes, making a video of it. So here is part 1 of my first dedicated try at honor mode. Our protagonist this journey is Oliver the Pale Green Orc. Like many others, Oliver's journey starts when he wakes up on an alien ship, freshly infected with brainworms. He has a splitting headache and he can't seem to remember who he is. But he didn't have time to think about it too much, so he got moving, trying to find his way back to more familiar surroundings. After exploring for a while, Oliver came across a twitching body with an exposed brain that appeared to be talking to him. Of course, he did the reasonable thing and freed the brain, hoping it might know more about his situation, seeing as it, could talk. It told Oliver to go to the helm, and since he had no other ideas, he agreed. Moving deeper into the ship with his new brain friend, Oliver was ambushed by a fellow green humanoid who turned out to be a racist.
Abomination. This is your end.
The stranger's name was Lae'zel, and she quickly realized that he was green like her and offered to help him and Brainy get to the helm. Together, they fought their way past a bunch of imps infesting the ship, where Oliver got to show off his brute orcish strength. After taking them out, they went through a questionable-looking door.
Girl, that's a booty hole.
Not willing to risk pushing buttons, Oliver put the people held captive out of their misery and ignored the fact that he somehow missed a swing on an unmoving, unconscious target. He then took a little time to go through the area, looting for anything useful that he could find. Eventually, he realized that there was a not unalive person stuck in one of the machines. Throwing his previous caution of touching alien buttons to the wind, he freed them. He found out her name was Shadowheart, and she too was also a racist.
Your mind lurches into her thoughts. Her gratitude is mixed with wariness, because you have a with you.
Well, you're all being racists.
Not sure how he found himself surrounded by ladies who seemed to hate green-colored people so much, he still thought it best to work with them. For now. They made their way through some more totally normal doors,
Booty hole.
and found themselves in the midst of a battle between some Mind Flayer squidmen and devils. One of the squids demanded that he touch some alien tentacles to escape, and with the agreement of the angry green woman and his little brain friend, Oliver and company fought their way through the room. Shadowheart showed off her skills by making this big demon man drop his fancy sword, and after thrashing through the remaining enemies, Oliver made it to the transponder. Without a clue on what to do, he connected the two tentacles before nearly getting blown up by a dragon and flung from the ship to his death. But then he woke up. As unfortunate as it was that this all wasn't just a dream, Oliver still didn't know who or where he was, so he pressed on to find some answers. Running across a body, Oliver felt a tingle that he didn't fully understand, so he shook it off and quickly stumbled onto Shadowheart passed out on the beach. He woke her up, and was surprised to see that she thanked him for helping her, so he agreed to stick together cause safety in numbers, right? She and Oliver explored the beach, and he found her a cool hat before they both leveled up. Seeing some brainy lookalikes who didn't look so friendly, they hopped around the rocks to get away. Up the cliff, they found a portal, and since touching strange-looking objects had only appeared to help until now, Oliver poked it, and someone inside started asking for a hand.
A hand? Anyone?
Feeling something bubble up inside and claw at his brain, there was only one thing on Oliver's mind. So he gave the hand a slap. Apparently, that was not what the guy meant, so Oliver used his incredible strength to... Oh, jeez, there we go. Rescue a wizard in distress.
Hello. I'm Gale of Waterdeep.
The guy seemed nice enough, if not a little weird, so he'd fit right in, and he joined the party. Exploring the Crèche some more, they helped the hurt Mind Flayer before investigating a super pale dude screaming loudly on the side of the beach. He seemed to be afraid of boars or something, at least that's what Oliver thought before he nearly got stabbed in the back. They eventually realized they all had brainworms, and after threatening each other in kind, he introduced himself as Astarion, and another weirdo was added to the party. With so much extra backup, taking on the evil brainies sounded like an easy task now, so the crew circled around and got into position. The ensuing fight was in fact easy. With an explosive opener from Shadowheart, the group cleaned up with little issue, and Oliver felt satisfied that they had cleared what they could from this wreck. Climbing back up the rocks, they stumbled onto Lae'zel being held captive by some tieflings. She rudely demanded Oliver help her, and he was going to leave her behind, but she promised she could help him get rid of the tadpole, so he saved her. She told him that someone nearby had heard about more of her people, so he had her wait back at camp until he could find them. It didn't take long, as right around the corner, the gang encountered a group of goblins attacking some fellow adventurers. With the hopes of a potential cure on the line, Oliver and his merry band of weirdos were forced into action. Where Oliver divine smited this goblin so hard even the universe had to think about it. The rest of the fight was pretty standard, with Shadowheart, Astarion, and Gale attacking from range, and Oliver continuing to show off his orcish fury by bashing whatever he could in the face. A follow-up on Magic Missile finished everyone off, and they proceeded into the gates. Inside, Oliver tried to use his Paladin Riz to stop a fight, but he didn't try hard enough to stop this guy from getting knocked out. As Oliver approached the stranger named Zevlor, Astarion noticed that he had some really cool gloves, so his hands got a little sticky, and he hightailed it back to camp before anyone noticed. After learning about some angry druids who wanted to lock down the grove, the group returned to camp, and Astarion noticed that the gloves looked really useful for Shadowheart. Oliver went to talk to her to see if she liked them, but she mostly just gave him snark.
No harm in a little mystery, don't you think?
Since Lae'zel said she wanted to find someone, Oliver invited her along. They found the tiefling she was looking for, and Oliver used his orc intimidation of just standing still to assist her with encouraging him to talk. Oliver still wanted to explore every option though, so they went to the druids HQ and saved a little girl from a snake-happy dictator.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Gale was super impressed by Oliver's show of compassion, so he confessed to having an addiction to magic items and asked Oliver if he would help him with it. Then Shadowheart opened up about a permanent wound on her hand, and Oliver wondered why everyone was suddenly starting to trust him so much. That trust didn't extend to the druids though, cause Kaga refused to take pity on the refugees, so the crew went snooping into her things to find out about her schemes before heading over to the local healer Nettie to see if she could get rid of their brainworms. She couldn't. And in fact, she poisoned Oliver after he suspected her of lying to them. Then she refused to let any of them leave, but they convinced her.
You sought a fight, and now you...
After Oliver used the antidote he found, everyone leveled up, putting the group at level 3. The next day, the crew explored some ruins, convincing some bandits to abandon the place before ambushing their friends and taking all the loot for themselves. They stole everything in sight, including the weapons off these skeletons. Good thing too, because they got up to attack a few moments later. Oliver and team had to put them down.
Rising from the dead just to protect some dusty old fortress.
Opening the final room, they met the coolest bone boy, Withers, and left the crypt in search of more XP. They found it when they ran into some strangers trying to help their dying brother on the road. They had been attacked by an owlbear and called Oliver a true soul? Explaining that they were looking for survivors of the crash, Oliver told them that he was a survivor, but that only led to a fight, which they ended quickly. They made a stop through the forest and Oliver met the best companion in the game, good boy Scratch, before moving further along. It did seem that they should be more cautious though, so approaching a village destroyed by what looked like goblins, Shadowheart had the great and unoriginal idea to turn herself into a drow to get past with no arguments. Their adventure didn't stop there, and Shadowheart used her disguise to save a deep gnome at a windmill, and talk the group's way into the main goblin camp. Once inside, Oliver did some toe licking to steal a fancy ring. The group found out that they could use their brainworms to control people, and they saved a bard. Then after returning to camp, Astarion helped himself to the bard's pockets. As a heads up, I couldn't be bothered to really try to get money, so assume that most of my wealth from this point came from pickpocketing Volo. Sorry dude, but I played this game through a bunch already and I really didn't care to focus on money this run. The next day, after some team respecs, the group did some cleanup around the grove. Fighting an assassin bugbear, finding Astarion a cool new bard hat, saving a child from some harpies on the beach, and agreeing to Grand Theft Idol. After things got quiet in the grove, the group found an old alchemy shop in an abandoned village, where after smashing some caskets to skip the surprise round for fighting some annoying skeletons, then picking up one of the other best members of the group, Shovel. After picking up the evil-looking necromancy book, they returned to the village to find some more trouble to get into. They didn't have to look hard, stumbling across some ruckus in a barn. This almost turned out bad, with Oliver getting hit with a nasty crit as an opener. The team recovered with some heals from Shadowheart and Bard Starion, and after Oliver got revenge by one-hit thunder smiting the bugbear from full health, the fight went pretty easy from there. The next stop was a burning inn in the Risen Road, where Oliver showed off his brute orcish strength to save someone from the burning building. Nearly blowing himself and his friends up by hitting a door. Seriously, this was very stupid, and I normally do this in turn-based mode, but I was being lazy. The whole party ran in here and very well could have burned to death. Don't do this. Once the team was safely out of the building, they were rewarded with a cool new staff that Oliver gave to Gale, since he didn't have a fancy hat for him yet. While exploring the inn, they found criminals hiding in a shed. They just sort of told this one guy not to blow them up, and he gave them a key to their hideout. That was easy, I guess. Talking their way deeper into the outpost, they met a woman called Zeres, who told Oliver if he could find a special shipment for her, she would reward him. Not one to turn down a nice reward, Oliver agreed, and they headed back to the Risen Road after stocking up on camp supplies at the inn. A few steps away, they ran into a gruesome scene of bodies surrounded by hyenas. Oliver thought that they could use Shovel as a secret weapon and sneak up on them, but it didn't really turn out how he planned when the conscious hyenas just ignored Shovel's attacks, and two of the ones on the ground exploded into gnolls. His plan ruined, the team sprang into action, with Bard Starion taking out the hyena before it could get away, Shadowheart and Gale taking out the remaining two who hadn't changed yet, and the last two going down without too much of an issue. They still hadn't found what they needed yet, so they knew they had to move on. The road seemed dangerous though, so they took a detour back to the grove to do some shopping. All geared up, they wanted to test their new strength. Oliver remembered that the brother-sister duo they met earlier told them about some owlbears in a cave, and it seemed as good a time as any to test their luck. With a successful sneak attack from Shovel, the group initiated combat. A good first round left the mother owlbear with less than half health, and with the first strike of the next round, she called for backup. A magic missile from Gale left her at 2 hit points, and Oliver was able to take her out. With the owlbear mate joining the fight, he took a claw to Bard Starion. He retaliated and landed a 40% blindness, then the team laid in as hard as they could. It wasn't enough, but it took some opportunity attacks trying to get to Bard Starion and Shadowheart, and he went down next round. Not able to bring himself to kill the owlbear cub, the group fled to camp where they decided to rest for the day. Confident in their abilities, Oliver returned to the goblin camps, since it was still an annoyance that they had to deal with. He thought it was a good idea to use some of the many barrels he had been collecting until now to assist with making quick work of some of the threats. With one leader down, Oliver found out that he could harvest their brainworms and give himself more power. Knowing the journey ahead would be dangerous, he embraced the tadpole, and both Astarion and Gale sounded interested too. He would have to keep an eye out to find enough to share. Snooping through the back of Gut's room, they killed an ogre and found a passageway into the Underdark. Not fully ready to take on the dangers of the Underdark, the group returned to the surface and moved further into the goblin camp. They came across the big boss man, Dror Ragslin, trying to talk to a dead mind flayer. Choosing not to interfere, he almost found out that Oliver was the one responsible for escaping the ship, but with a bit of persuasion, he let the issue go. After such a close call, Oliver thought that they should make themselves scarce for a while, so they headed back to the Risen Road to see if they could finally find that missing shipment. Once there, they encountered a pretty strong group of gnolls attacking some people in a cave, but Oliver ended up feeling a connection with his worm. Convincing the head gnoll to attack whoever was in the cave instead, the group left the fight with little damage. The leader wasn't satisfied though, so Oliver used his brain powers to first convince her to turn on the other gnolls. Then he tried to get her to end herself, but failed, forcing the team to have to put her down. This was no easy task, as she was able to stun Oliver first round, leaving him with 7 hit points. Shadowheart did her best to keep Oliver on his feet, but next round she slapped him down and only his orc resilience kept him standing. Luckily she went for Shovel next turn, and quick heals from Shadowheart got Oliver back to full health, where a Divine Smite in combination with his new worm powers hit for 55 damage, killing her.
Another parasite. Collect it. It might be useful.
They got another parasite from her body, looted all the hyena ears, and then grabbed the missing shipment chest for Xeres. They returned to the hideout and gave her the chest, where she rewarded them with access to a special inventory from their trader. He had some really good items in stock, but buying them would leave the group short on cash, so they made a note to come back when they were in a better financial situation. Instead, they went in search of gold, meeting a paladin who told them about a devil that was terrorizing the area. Their leader offered Oliver a sword if they killed it, so he agreed. They found her on the edge of the river, and with a sneak attack from Shovel, it was a quick fight. Sorry guys, I love Karlach, but I never actually killed her before, and I thought that I would just make the paladin fight easier since this is an attempt at getting the golden dice. I plan to skip content anyway, so yeah, easy way it was. Oliver returned the devil's head to the paladin leader and then immediately turned on them since they gave Oliver a bad feeling. Sleeping for the night, the squatter they stayed with at camp was visited by a demon lady who gave him a fancy robe for killing the devil. Oliver had forgotten that he was hunting for her, but since Will was staying safely back at camp to drink wine, he gave the robe to Gale. That night, Oliver was also visited by the orc in his dreams, telling him that he should use the parasite, which he had already been doing, so it was a completely unnecessary conversation. With their business on the Risen Road completed and Oliver still not ready to stop procrastinating on the missions he had already been given, they returned to the Underdark to scratch the itch of exploration. The first stop, Failure Alluve, a fancy sword that Oliver pulled from a stone. Then using Featherfall, they planned to leap down some ledges, but they were ambushed by the Bullet. Despite this being an unexpected encounter and Jalstarion nearly dying, Oliver managed a 60 damage smite crit on his turn. A couple more rounds of damage and crushing leaps later, the Bullet was left with 35 hit points, so he ran away like a bitch. The crew then made their way to a colony of mushroom people, where Oliver told their leader the truth about their situation and they were let inside. They met a woman who lost her husband that went picking for rare mushrooms, and Oliver agreed to look for him whenever he got around to it. For the immediate moment though, the group returned to the surface to finally follow up on that lead about the crazy druid leader. They walked straight past old lady Ethel being hassled by some guys on the side of the road. Has this ever happened to anyone? Sometimes the cutscene with Ethel doesn't trigger for me. I can just ignore it. I have no idea what causes this. Oliver's ultimate goal was through a bunch of mud methods. Sending in Shovel first to try to get a surprise round, she walked through water and dropped her invisibility. She was first in the turn order though, so the gang got into position to attack while the enemy was distracted. It all went pretty smoothly outside of some really bad rounds where basically every attack missed. They headed to bed before preparing to face off with Kaga, and Oliver caught Gale simping for his ex. He had a nice bro moment with Gale teaching him magic. And the next day, good boy Scratch shared his favorite ball with Oliver. He's such a good boy. Fully rested, they headed to the grove to face off with Kaga. Proving she was working with the Shadow Druids, Oliver tried to convince her to stop, but it failed, so they prepared for battle. Opening with the Fairy Fire from Jalstarion to give his friends advantage, there isn't really anything significant with this fight. Kaga went down in the second round, and besides annoyingly turning into an animal when their health got low, the other Shadow Druids followed right after. With the Shadow Druids taken care of, it was time for Operation Grand Theft Idol. Sending in the sneakiest fella and a simple cast of Fog Cloud to hide in, and the idol was yoinked for a clean getaway. When the coast was clear, Oliver gave the idol to the tiefling child Mole for a nice ring reward, and then Astarion stole it back, just for the nature bonus, and because he could. After securing the safety of the tieflings, all that was left was to take care of the goblins, so the crew did the logical thing and went back to the Underdark to go shopping. They talked to the shopkeep Blurg and met his friend Omelum, who was pretty chill for a mind flayer. They gave Oliver yet another task for him to procrastinate on, so that's exactly what he did, finally going back to find the mushroom picker. It did not go well. But they did get the noble stock mushroom he was after. They broke the news to the mushroom picker's wife, and surprisingly, she didn't seem too broken up about it. Oliver still gave her the noble stock as a condolence gift though. With the shopping done, the crew got a good night's sleep before it was actually time to take on the rest of the goblin camp to secure safe passage for the tieflings. Refreshed, they started with Minthara the Drow. The difficulty here is with the scrying eye. They are vulnerable to thunder damage, so it was Gale's turn to shine. Okay, using a scroll, it was Shadowheart's time to shine. This kicked off the fight, and like any other paladin in this game, I don't take Minthara lightly. Astarion popped a fairy fire for some advantage, and Minthara immediately held person him. Oliver missed every hit, and more goblins joined the fight. Then Shadowheart showed just how much of God's favorite princess she was when she landed a 51% hold person back on Minty, and it was time to go to town. Astarion could sense that she was going to Divine Smite his vampire tush back to the grave, so he let loose, killing her in one turn. All that was left was to clean up the goblins and... Oops. Seriously though, the rest of the goblins weren't a problem aside from that little hiccup, so the group looted the corpses and went to Bone Boy Withers to get Shadowheart back on her feet. Hello? Withers? You there, man? Yeah, so he got stuck and I got really scared. My biggest fear is that a glitch would screw up the run, so I quit the menu and came back. Luckily for me, Shadowheart did too. Welcome back, girl. Not having the patience to deal with Ragzlin honorably, Oliver dipped into his emergency store of barrels. I don't use barrelmancy that much, but for some reason I enjoy blowing this guy up. In my first playthrough, he was the first fight I really struggled with, and he did actually teach me to think outside the box though, because I had to beat him by fighting in the rafters, so I guess I owe him that, but he still has to suffer for making me struggle. Since Ragzlin was taken out by the explosion, this fight was a breeze. The group only had to kill the remaining goblins, who were mostly injured from the explosion too. After clearing the throne room, the next step was finding the missing druid leader. Oliver and friends found him in the goblin dungeon. The fight started immediately with everyone on high alert, and Astarion was almost one-shot by this goblin. After taking out the fleeing children though, this fight was pretty straightforward. Once the area was clear, Halsin agreed to help with their tadpole since we killed the goblin leaders. He went back to meet us at the grove, but in true Oliver fashion, he procrastinated. They returned to the Zenthram outpost to trade for those items that they didn't buy before, more specifically, the Titan string bow. I gave this bow to Oliver for now since he had the highest strength, but it will eventually become Astarion's weapon. With the shopping done, the crew got some rest and headed over to the blighted village where Oliver finally took notice of the old well. It was time to fight some spiders. First, the crew had to clear the first room, so after grabbing these boots that let you walk freely on spider webs, they got into position for a fight. I was preparing for a surprise round with Shovel, but I didn't notice on honor mode that the spiders can see invisibility, or could they always? And I just never paid attention. I don't know which one is right there. To get the surprise round, I quickly attacked before she was spotted. Unfortunately, Oliver missed his first attack, but Gale and Astarion were able to take out at least one spider before the surprise round ended. The fight went smoothly from there, but I was a little confused about what was going on with Astarion's animations here. With the first room cleared, Oliver smashed through some webs to find this cliff edge where he tossed some alchemy's fire on this clutch of eggs from a distance. The goal is to take out as many eggs as possible before getting spotted, and this particular set of eggs is just a lot easier to do from here. Heading into the area with the spider matriarch, everyone got into position to start the fight. Wearing the boots to let you walk on webs, Oliver threw another alchemy fire onto this next clutch of eggs and moved to cross so he could reach the last ones. He didn't notice that the fire also damaged the web, so when he walked across it, it broke, and he fell. My heart stopped here. I didn't know what was going on, and with Oliver separated and hurt, I thought my plan was falling apart. Oliver immediately went into sneak mode and got very lucky when this spider teleported next to him, but he wasn't quick enough and he got spotted. He luckily got close enough to these vines that he could climb to safety, so he retreated to get the chance to recover from this embarrassing mistake. Rearranging the party again, Shadowheart used Phaler Alu's Shriek to get some extra damage to whatever came into range and topped Oliver up to full health. Mama Spider rested on one of the webs, so on Shadowheart's turn she burned it, causing her to take a bunch of damage from the fall. She finally moved close enough to Shadowheart to put her in range of Phaler Alu for extra damage, and after doing a heal to effectively give Oliver Bless, he swung at a 42% chance at disadvantage and landed it. Triggering Luck of the Far Realms, he did 61 points of damage, and triggering Great Weapon Master allowed him to strike again for an additional 20. Shadowheart summoned a spiritual weapon, and the babies focused it, giving Astarion the chance to take the big spider down. It was at this point that I realized that Gale wasn't in the fight. I backed him up when Oliver fell in case my plan went to crap, and completely forgot to get him in the turn order. Now that he was in, his magic missile easily wiped the floor with the remaining baby spiders, and the last two were easy to dispatch. Retrieving the amethyst from the cave floor, the team left the area and made their way back toward the goblin camp to do some cleanup. Finishing up what was left in the courtyard did finally tip the party to level 5, and with that milestone achieved, they returned to the Underdark to start clearing the way through to the Shadowcurse lands. He then spoke to the Myconoid Sovereign and got the mission to kill the nearby Dwagar. Not seeing a reason to stall, the group headed out, but were stopped by another Myconoid named Glut. He wanted revenge for his people, so Oliver agreed to take him along and kill the Dwagar. They made their way down to an abandoned beach, and I tried to get a surprise round, but I forgot that these guys are normally invisible. I typically have Volo's eye at this point, so I can see them, but since he is my reoccurring source of income this run, Oliver had to use a Scroll of Sea Invisibility. Unfortunately, Astarion got spotted, but we still got our surprise round when we decided to immediately attack. Glut nearly got one-shot by this archer, and Gale was going to magic missile the leader, hopefully to death, but he was counterspelled. On his turn, he tried to animate undead, so Gale got revenge by counterspelling him back. Then on Oliver's turn, a divine smite put him down. Glut died before the battle was over, but we all know I was probably going to kill him anyway, so there's nothing really lost there. Successful in their mission, the group returned to the colony, and Oliver made a point to stop and give the dying Deep Gnome an antidote that he took off of the Dwagar's body. She was hesitant to trust him, but ultimately told him about her captured friends across the lake, and he agreed to set them free if he could. Of course, what Oliver did was not enough yet, so the Sovereign also asked Oliver to cross the lake and kill a drow guy named Nier. Doing what Oliver does best, he procrastinated, instead getting into a fight with these hook horrors stationed around the Susur tree. As always, the crew went for surprise rounds, trying to take out one hook horror at a time to avoid pulling the others into the fight immediately. The plan was working until one managed to call for backup, and a crazy drow joined the fight with another hook horror, and then the bullet showed up, cause why not, I guess? Lucky for the crew, the hook horrors and the bullet seemed to be more interested in killing each other than them, so they let them have a kaiju battle in the background and turned their attention to the weirdo wizard. Gale landed another nice thunder wave, I love this spell, and blasted him from his perch and into Oliver's range. And Oliver finished him off next round. Now it was time to deal with the big creatures in the battle. I was tempted to let them duke it out, but I imagined that it could get out of hand and I would have to deal with not only 3 hook horrors, but also the bullet. So I took the bullet out and went all in on the hook horrors. This ended with little issue after that, and the group moved on to further explore the Underdark. After this, I went running around the Underdark, headed for the Zenthram loot, and I completely forgot that I had not dealt with the Minotaurs yet. At least I had the sensible idea to heal up before I went stomping around without a care. I was actually kind of scared here because these guys had the high ground. I normally bottleneck them, but I was convinced that they would like leap from the cliff and crush my crew. Surprisingly though, that didn't really happen. One Minotaur did charge Oliver for a hefty 34 points, but a Luck of the Far Realm's Divine Smite finished off the chunk of health that Astarion didn't take out on his turn. Next turn, the last Minotaur did decide to leap from the cliff and rush Astarion after he deleted a chunk of his health with those crossbows. His measly 8 health wouldn't keep him alive though, so he was down shortly after. I then debated taking a long rest here, but I think instead I lost my mind. I decided to try the Githyanki patrol. This encounter is another one that has caused me issues in the past, and I quickly learned to never underestimate the Githyanki. Like the idiot I am, I wanted to see what this was like without Lae'zel because I was too lazy to go put her in the party, and every other time that I have done this, she was present. Of course, I shouldn't be trying something that I have no idea about in honor mode, but that is exactly what I did. Oliver did expect this to go terribly wrong after witnessing a dragon casually blowing up a bridge, so he recommended Shadowheart hang back to inevitably save their asses when it all went to hell. This, for obvious reasons, went terribly wrong. Again, respect Githyanki, y'all. This archer one-shot Astarion and I knew I was f***ed. I even went in half spent from the previous fight, so maybe I just wanted to see what would happen. I don't know why I thought the outcome would be any different, but the group's very swift death was a clear answer. My Shadowheart failsafe made sure the run did not die with my idiotic plotting though, and Gale was even able to escape alive too. Oliver is never one to quit though, so after Shadowheart revived him and Astarion and they got the proper night's rest to come in fresh, they had full intention of getting revenge. An invisible shovel went claws out on this archer, and Oliver managed to sneak around while they were distracted to divine smite the other one in a single hit. Astarion follows suit by one-shotting the other archer with a ranged flourish. The surprise round ended with this chick having to waste her turn to dash to try to reach the action, and this guy hold-personing Astarion and killing Shovel. Oliver wouldn't let that happen though, so on his turn, with a nice divine smite, he broke his concentration, and with another swing, took him down. This lady had to dash again, and it was time for Operation Unseen Wizard attacks from the shadows. Gale, who's been chilling behind this rock, still wasn't seen, so he dealt out a hold person that landed and opened the door for Astarion to somehow miss every shot, but Oliver to go in for some tasty auto crits and smites. His revenge against the disrespectful Githyanki completed, he found a disc that he somehow passed an Arcana check for to tell him about the Crèche and the mountain pass. Not ready to take on more angry green people with swords just yet, he thought they could at least do some reconnaissance. They spotted the temple that must have been housing the Gith Crèche. Trying to get closer look, everyone in the party failed the DC 15 strength check to get the lift working, so they had to take the dangerous path across the ledges. Moving slowly and letting Astarion disarm the traps as they were spotted, they made it safely across, where they spotted some more Gith shooting some gnomes in the back. Oliver's dream visitor told him that he should stay away, and after his recent experience, he agreed. For now. The group did find the door into the Crèche, and Astarion turned invisible and walked straight inside to unlock the waypoint for the rest to teleport in. At this trader, Oliver bought the Gloves of Dexterity and the Unseen Menace. These items let him drop his dex for a while, and the Unseen Menace gave him advantage. To test out his new weapons, the group went to take on some Death Shepherds who were just hanging out on the road apparently. Shovel, like the MVP she is, initiated a surprise round. These guys are a bother when they res undead as a bonus action. Gale helped to shut this down, so the remaining Death Shepherd couldn't bring his friend back, and that helped to keep the resurrections in check. With the last Shepherd falling, the rest of the ghouls died after a few more attacks. Not wanting to start any more problems with the Gith for now, the group returned to the Underdark to, you guessed it, finish up a mission that Oliver neglected to follow up on until now. They made their way to the Arcane Tower, avoiding these traps by having Astarion go invisible and run past them. In the greenhouse, they were able to collect some of the mushrooms that Omelum wanted. They didn't find too much else except some old books. Those books came in handy when they made it to the top of the tower and met a robot named Bernard. Oliver recited his knowledge of poetry to him, and he gave them a fancy ring. Before they left, Oliver broke this strange stool and took the leg because it looked really sturdy. With the last samples collected, they returned to Amelum and he tried to attune to Oliver's brainworm to remove it. It only ended up making it stronger in the end though. Amelum offered Oliver a ring to protect him from charm, but he was more interested in these fancy boots. Their business with the Mind Flayer completed, Oliver finally thought that they shouldn't keep procrastinating and they returned to the beach to hop on a boat and sail into the darkness. Turns out that the guy near Oliver and crew were sent to kill was stuck in a cave-in and had to be rescued. Oliver overheard some gnomes talking about an escapee who ran off with some smoke powder that could clear the rubble. So after convincing them to tell him where to look, they went to get the smoke powder. They found the missing gnome and the barrel, so Astarion turned invisible and helped himself to the barrel when she wasn't looking. It looked powerful, so the team thought that they should keep it for a possible rainy day. With some less effective explosives to spare, the group returned to the cave-in and made sure that they were all ready to say hello to True So Near. Breaking him free, he immediately started to kill the deep gnome, so Oliver told him how weak it made him look to pick on defenseless gnomes. He and the revolting slavers executed their plan and the battle started. First things first, I didn't actually know what Nir's legendary action was. He can cast Psionic Visage when he is attacked, and I think that makes it so that he takes no damage from physical attacks like bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage until they are all destroyed. For this reason, Oliver went in to thin out the herd and let some of the magic users focus on Nir for now. He opened with a tasty smite, downing Sergeant Thorn in a single swing. Then turned on this other guy and taking him down 2 attacks later. Astarion and Gale had stationed themselves up on the high ground, and since an ally ensnared this Mind Master, Astarion took him out with a ranged flourish, because I'm pretty sure those dudes can mind control you. He then executed this archer who was on the high ground with him. Swords bards, man. Also, as a note, at this point I had given Astarion the Titan String bow Oliver previously had and the Club of the Hill Giant strength that we got from the top of the Arcane Tower. On Shadowheart's turn, I had her cast Calm Emotions on as many people as she could because I'm pretty sure Nir can mind control you too. He proved me right when on his turn he immediately tried to mind control Astarion who wasn't under Calm Emotions. Not gonna happen, dude. That bow is way too dangerous. Gale shut him down and then pelted him with a bunch of magic missiles. This did trigger his legendary action, but it also took a good chunk of health. On Oliver's turn, he had the idea to cast Darkness to blind Nir. When he did, everything kinda exploded. I don't know what happened here. Is that a part of his legendary action? It didn't hurt that bad, so I knew that I could bounce back. I just have no idea what happened. At this point, I wasn't really worried. Nir was basically the last enemy left, and he decided to hang out in the darkness, which was fine. Everyone just took out the last enemies, and Oliver dismissed the darkness so that they could focus on Nir. Gale nearly dealt the final blow with Magic Missile. 1 hit point, man. I hate it when that happens. But the kill went to a random ally who got Nir with a spear. With Nir down, Oliver told the slavers that the deep gnomes were in his care now, effectively keeping his word to the gnome at the Myconoid colony. They then took Nir's head for the Sovereign. Another note here, I debated the idea of fighting Grim. I'm pretty obviously being overly cautious this run because this is my first focused attempt at Honor Mode, and while I have developed a crippling addiction to this game recently, your girl does not have a ton of time to dedicate to replaying this every day. I decided to not risk it, but I did get some XP around the Forge area, fighting some animated armor, killing some magma methods, and picking up this amulet to initiate the mission that we could finish in Act 3. With everything cleaned up here, Oliver and group returned to the Myconoids to present Nir's head and got a mushroom dance performance as a reward. Before they finally pushed through to the Shadow Curse lands, Oliver thought that they should finally check out the Githyanki. They met a crazy doctor who put Oliver in a creepy machine that nearly killed him. I didn't pass the check, guys. No illicit powers on a bonus action for us. She quickly betrayed them when her plan to take his brainworm didn't work, so they had to fight their way out. The crew then went deeper into the Crèche where they were forced to give up the fact that they had the special artifact that the Githyanki were looking for. The artifact very clearly liked Oliver better though, so they were forbidden to leave. Instead, they went to meet the Inquisitor, whom they completely ignored in favor of finding a secret entrance to the blood of Leander. There were a couple reasons for my actions here. I wanted the blood of Leander for Act 2 because its undead blind ability is pretty nice, and I didn't really want to fight the Inquisitor just yet. I heard that he could be difficult, so playing it safe as I was planning to come back and clear the Crèche later. Not to mention opening the path to Leander gave me an escape route if things turned out bad for me during that fight, so a little bit of planning ahead. At this point, I was ready to move on though, so I would call this the end of Act 1, as Oliver and his friends headed back to the Forge and into the Shadow Curse lands. Thanks for watching if you made it this far. I'm sorry that it does sort of jump around a bit. There's no like straight line from encounter to encounter. A large part of that comes from I'm normally playing after work, and that playtime can range from 20 minutes to an hour to at max like 2. So sometimes I cut the recordings short and then I don't remember what I did last time. So it's a little all over the place, and I'm sorry for that. At the time of writing this script, I'm pretty sure I'm headed towards the final sequence of Act 2 really soon, and I'm hoping that all goes well, but the randomness doesn't really clear up too much. I'm going to be jumping between Act 1 and 2 for at least a part of this, and I'm still playing very cautiously. I know I'm playing probably more cautiously than I even need to be. It hasn't been that bad, honestly, but I would just hate to lose the run to me making a stupid mistake, which I know is going to happen at some point. So anyways, thank you all again for joining me, and if you like this video, please give it a like or don't. That's up to you. But I do hope that you'll come back and join me for my journey as I continue through Act 2 and my quest to get the golden dice. Thank you all. Bye-bye.